Welcome students. Today we are going to look at the topic who are the Dalits. The term Dalit refers to individuals who have been oppressed by order of caste as untouchables. However, the group formerly known as Harijans or untouchables has taken this name and it has come to represent them in a campaign for reform and the abolition of the oppression brought about by the caste system for generations. Dalits are referred to in India as scheduled castes under both legal and constitutional terminology. Approximately 166.6 million Dalits live in India now. Dalits in India have experienced socio-economic discrimination, cultural enslavement and political exclusion for millennia. They have now started to express who they are, claiming their own equality and working to bring about radical changes in the social order founded on liberty and equality. The caste system's beginnings in Hinduism are where the oppression of Dalits has its roots. The Manusmriti is a revered Hindu scripture from the 2nd century BCE that contains the caste system's philosophical underpinnings. Communities that were considered untouchable were excluded from participation in the community's social and religious activities and were only allowed to perform menial labor that was seen as polluting, including animal slaughter and leather working. The Indian Constitution abolished untouchability in law when India gained independence. However, despite being derived from the Constitution, the Protection of Civil Rights Act of 1955 and 1976 and the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act of 1989 remain largely ineffective in their implementation, necessitating the question, who are the Dalits in the current situation as well? We will be looking into the same in this session. In this session, we will be looking at who are the Dalits, locating Dalits in the Hindu social order, current political situation of Dalit identity. First of all, we can start with who are the Dalits. Predominantly scheduled caste, that is commonly known as SCs, scheduled tribes, STs and the other backward classes are all encompassed by the word Dalit. However, the word has thus far mainly been used in reference to SCs in political discourse on a daily basis. The focus of the current session is mainly on these groupings as well. These are the castes included in the schedule under Article 341 by the President of India. In 1935 Government of India Act, the British used the name SC for the first time. Before this, a few of these castes belonged to the depressed classes, a term that was first used at the start of the 20th century. Traditionally, people whose jobs and lifestyle choices contained ritually offensive behavior were classified as untouchable in Hindu tradition. Caste is a type of social stratification that involves hierarchically structured, closed endogamous divisions to which membership is attributable by bloodline, between which interaction is confined and mobility is impractical. The Indian word Jadi describes caste. Although people tend to confuse it with Varna, which refers to the fundamental classes, 4 in number, established in Hindu scripture, when we use the term caste, we are actually referring to Jadi. Hinduism recognizes only 4 Varnas, although there are thousands of Jadis. The caste system's evolution and origins are both a mystery. However, there is a general argument that it developed through the Varna system and matured between 600 and 200 BCE. The lowest of the order, the Sudras, were thought to have emerged from Brahman's feet, while the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas are attributed to his arms and thighs respectively. Dalits are traditionally regarded as Ali Shudras or Avarna in the Hindu social structure and are so classed as untouchables. The schedule does not, however, include every ex-untouchable, and not all the castes covered by the schedule were subject to untouchability equally in the recent or distant past. The reigning British Raj attempted to abolish various facets of the Indian caste system in the 19th century, particularly those pertaining to the untouchables. Because they typically did not believe in reincarnation, British liberals considered the treatment of untouchables as particularly cruel. Groups of erstwhile untouchables were designated as scheduled castes in India's new constitution following independence in 1947, making them a special case for treatment and government aid. When the Indian constitution went into effect in 1950, it outlawed untouchability and established a very extensive program of positive discrimination in favor of Adivasis and Dalits. According to it, these groups are designated as scheduled tribes, sometimes abbreviated as STs, and scheduled caste respectively as SCs. The titles come from the lists of respective groups created in accordance with the 1935 Colonial India Act. The caste system maintains and perpetuates inequality which places SCs in the lowest position. The Shastras, in the opinion of Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, has given the caste system legal standing. It is sanctioned by religion. It is moral, spiritual and legal. This notion of graduated inequity applies to every aspects of life. Similar to how African Americans in United States switched from the term Negro to the term Black or African American, the term Dalit has evolved into a political identity. Dalits still refer to themselves as Dalits because they feel the term is more than just a misnomer, rather they see it as an identity created through struggle and assertion. The British government replaced the derogatory term Dalit in 1919 with the term depressed class. Following Ambedkar's effort, the Dalits disregarded Gandhi's compassionate branding of them as Harijan, which meant the children of God, since it sought sympathy from others. The Dalit Panther movement of Maharashtra popularized the word Dalit around 1970 yet again. Dalits primarily comprise poor farmers, indentured servants and agricultural laborers in the rural economy. They essentially make up the majority of the working population in the urban economy. According to Sutardar, Dalits started their movement in response to Brahmins' mistreatment, although they have yet to be successful. There are several reasons why the campaign was unsuccessful, but one of the most significant is the Brahmanism is deeply ingrained in Indian society. Using Dr. Ambedkar's framework, Thorat and Deshpande contend that the Hindu social order has miserably failed as a distribution system, leading to horrifying economic inequality and poverty over time, particularly among the social groups at the bottom of the social and economic hierarchy of Indian society. Discrimination, which permeates all aspects of the caste system, covers all imaginable economic domains, not just those related to production. The pattern of land ownership makes this clear. SCs make up a staggering 84% of the population in rural areas. They work in agriculture as farm laborers, sharecroppers or independent farmers. Compared to 1% of other households, nearly 13% of SC households lack access to land. And those who own land, small and marginal farmers, make up the vast majority, nearly 86% of ownership. SC workers make up a sizable portion of the estimated 20 lakh bonded laborers, if not the majority. They are bonded against any debts they accrued as a result of their marriage or regular living expenses. Some of these slaves are employed by the same owner for a number of years or even for the rest of their lives. Approximately 80% of Dalits live in rural areas. They continue to have a serious issue with economic exploitation. Nearly all of them work as landless or marginal farmers. Although this practice was outlawed by the law in 1976, many people were in the debt and forced to work as bonded laborers to pay off their debts. In these situations, an employee accepts a loan from a landlord or moneylender in exchange for a commitment to work for that person until the debt is paid in full. Due to high interest rates and the laborer's poverty, it is actually difficult to repay such obligations. It is then feasible for the debt to be handed down to the following generation, making it nearly impossible to break the cycle of servitude. Now we can historically trace the Dalit identity. Why, even after a century of development of sociology in the country, the Dalits occupy dubious position, particularly vis-a-vis the Hindu social order. Manusmriti defends the four Varna theory of caste with the claim that there cannot be fifth Varna. Then why have sociologists and anthropologists like Gurre and Domon classified Dalits as the fifth Varna? Even if we accept the book perspective, which anthropologists and sociologists have presented to us, that Dalits are the fifth Varna of the Hindu social order, a difficulty immediately arises since the Hindu social order schema is made up of the Varna Ashrama Dharma. India as a country is built upon the basis of Hindu social order, primarily followed by Islamic society, and the foundations of the system are influenced by the caste-based categorization that is prescribed by the former. That indicates that there are typically four different social groups in the Indian Hindu social order, and only the male members of three Varnas of Brahmin, Kshatriya and Vaishya have the mandate to pursue the four life stages of Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa, collectively known as ashramas. If each Varna is to acquire renunciation, in these stages they must carry out numerous socio-economic, political and religious duties as recorded by Kakkar. Sociologists have found little evidence to back up the idea that Dalits are a part of Hindu social order, which is relevant to the idea that they do not necessarily need to follow the rules established by the Hindu philosophy. Nevertheless, the system has permeated into the system where Dalits are classified using a variety of themes, starting from the poor and untouchables to other nomenclatures like Chandalas, Avarnas, Achuts, Parayas and Namas. Despite the fact there is still segregation and discrimination against Dalits in many areas, it is not as severe as it formerly was because of capitalist development and competitive politics. A small percentage of SCs now have better access to land because of various land reforms concerning the ceiling and distribution of land. Additionally, while most SC households are small or marginal farmers, not all are. 4.5% of SC farmers compared to 10.5% of others are middle or upper class peasants who own 4 hectares or more. Though they are not as wealthy as Hindus in the same category, some of them have undoubtedly fared better than their brethren since they took advantage of supposed development programs during the past 50 years and generated a surplus that could be sold. A portion of Dalits work in agriculture and other traditional caste jobs. They are basket makers, scavengers, weavers, leather artisans, etc. The capitalist economy has provided opportunities for individuals with marketable skills and goods. The Chamas in Agra, for instance, have proved their situation by promoting their goods even though their social position has not significantly changed. SEs operate in the organized and unorganized industrial sectors in metropolitan areas. They are petty shopkeepers, micro business owners, scavengers and white collar employees primarily in the public sector. Urban scavengers have evolved into blue collar employees, but their social standing has not. Their line of work is still derided as polluting. However, incidents or atrocities against Dalits have not shown a similar decline and persist in post-independence India in various forms including murder, grievous bodily harm, arson and sexual assault. This is true even though the visible practice of untouchability has undoubtedly decreased in public spheres. The crimes committed against Dalits are not primarily but frequently a result of caste prejudice. Conflicts over financial and political power are major factors in such tragedies. Land-owning castes, including upper and middle class as well as OBCs, do not condone Dalits receiving land under the state's various welfare programs. Conflicts between Dalits and non-Dalits are caused by disagreements over public and common land, other resources, including forests and water and pay. As a result, the vast majority of SCs continue to face discrimination and deprivation despite occupational diversity, an increase in literacy rates and stagnant urban migration. Most laws addressing the abolition of untouchability, stopping atrocities and promoting equality or opportunity have persisted on paper. A small percentage of Dalits have nonetheless seen an improvement in their financial situation. They compete with the middle class of non-Dalits and in doing so uphold their dignity and take part in political positions too. The Dalits have fought for a very long time to establish their separate and autonomous position from the Hindu social order. According to Kumar, the Hindu social order is therefore a social construct rather than an actuality. However, Dalits have been incorporated into the social order as a whole. Many low caste and untouchable communities converted in large numbers after Islam was introduced to India about the 13th century CE, and by the middle of the 19th century nearly a quarter of the population was Muslim. Current political situation of Dalit. Two distinct strategies for enhancing the situation of the people who are today known as Dalits evolved throughout the fight of Indian independence. The first was led by Mahatma Gandhi, who advocated elevating Dalits or Harijans as he preferred to call them, maintaining some aspects of existing caste structure while doing away with the shame and outward signs of untouchability. The second approach was pioneered by Dr. Ambedkar, a lawyer and himself untouchable, who believed that only by dismantling the caste system could untouchability be eliminated. Bhima Rao Ramji Ambedkar, who was generally referred to among Dalits as Baba Saheb, which means respected father, was the most outstanding figure to emerge from this process. In order to secure a political space and several socio-economic rights for Dalits under the British as well as in the constitution he drafted for independent India, he guided the Dalit insurrection through the major political conflicts between Hindus and Muslims at the conclusion of the colonial period. Ambedkar rose to prominence as the leading advocate for the untouchables who sought constitutional and legal protections unique to their group, comparable to those enjoyed by Muslims, Sikhs and Christians. Dalits have shifted somewhat into the political spotlight in recent years. They used to be pushed outside of the main political scene and kept out of the competition for government positions. They cannot be disregarded or taken for granted any longer. Not that they have succeeded in everything they set out to do, but their voice will not be silenced. Both parliamentary political parties and those who support revolutionary politics cannot afford to ignore them. Ambedkar launched in 1927 a civil rights agitation in the town of Mahad, hoped that by doing this Hindu society would become more aware of the need for long overdue social reform, but after being disappointed by the aggressive privileged caste response, he quickly turned his attention to politics. He was invited to the 3 roundtable conferences the British conducted between 1930 and 1932 on giving Indians more power because of his notoriety as a Dalit leader. He and Mahatma Mohandas Gandhi got into a heated argument on separate electorates for untouchables during the 1931 summit. Gandhi opposed Ambedkar by threatening to fast until death when he eventually won the election. A compromise was reached that gave untouchables more reserved seats in joint electorates and a commitment to other measures in their favor, replacing the Pune Pact of 1932's intention for separate electorates for untouchables. Affirmative action laws, which are mandated by the Constitution, have helped increase the number of Dalits in elected office, government posts and educational institutions. Despite this development, Dalits are still the most disadvantaged group in Indian society because of the ongoing stigma they endure. Dalits as a whole still struggle to survive in cruel, humiliating ways. Dalit women have recently suffered particularly severe effects. They face prejudice not just because of their gender, but also because of their religious, social and cultural frameworks that have placed them at the bottom of the social scale. Due to the untouchability stereotype, they are even more vulnerable to abuse and exploitation. In many sections of India, a large number of people move to the cities or to rural areas with the shortage of labor. Many Dalit families have relocated from rural areas to the rapidly expanding cities, slums and pavements. Additionally, they frequently perform the poorest work for the lowest pay here. Traditional jobs such as sweepers have the advantage of regular work and pay in some cities because they have been organized in municipal unions. Many Dalits engage in petty trade, drive cycle rickshaws or work as casual day laborers in small factories, quarries, brick lanes and on construction sites. According to A.C. Dubey, Dalit ideology is crucial for the development of class consciousness. He argues that while Dalit consciousness in historic India constituted a challenge to conventional Brahmanism and Hindu ideals, Dalit consciousness in contemporary India is the manifestation of Dalits' search for modernization. In the instance of India, Dalit mobilization should be analyzed in the context of time, illustrating and elucidating how various types of ideology have aided Dalit mobilization in India. While caste literature, production and circulation, forcible entry into temples of Hindus, burning copies of the Manusmriti, abandoning the services of native priests bound by Brahminic values and other issues were major concerns during the 1920s to 1950s, Dalit mobilization, Dalit identity today is more about the pursuit of rights, justice and equality than it is about simply rebelling against Hinduism. Sociology must therefore address the fact that successive stages of Dalit consciousness are motivated by various ideologies and interests. Now we can see what is the summary of today's presentation. Scheduled castes, that is SCs, scheduled tribes, STs and other backward classes are all encompassed by the word Dalit. The word Dalit has so far mainly been used in reference to SCs in political discourse. Caste is a type of social stratification that involves hierarchically structured closed endogamous divisions. The British Raj attempted to abolish various facets of Indian caste system in the 19th century. Dalits are traditionally regarded as Alishudras or Avarna in the Hindu social structure and are classed as untouchables. The untouchables were designated as scheduled caste in the India's new constitution following independence in 1947. The claim that Dalits are a component of the Hindu social structure is not well supported by sociological research. The caste-based categorization that the former advocated has an impact on the system's fundamentals. Despite discrimination, it has lessened over time due to capitalized progress. For people with marketable goods and skills, the capitalist system has created opportunities. Dalits work as weavers, scavengers, basket makers, leather craftspeople, etc. still vilified as polluters their line of employment. However, there was not been a commensurate drop in instances of atrocities committed against Dalits. Most of the legislation addressing the removal of untouchability, putting an end to atrocities and advancing equality of opportunity have only existed in writing. The financial status of a small number of Dalits has improved, though Baba Sahib Ambedkar launched a civil rights movement in India but soon turned his attention to politics. He was invited to roundtable conferences on giving Indians more power because of his Dalit credentials. Both political parties and those who support revolutionary politics cannot afford to ignore Dalits any longer. Affirmative action laws have helped increase the number of Dalits in elected office, government posts and educational institutions. Despite this development, Dalit as a whole still struggles to survive in cruel, humiliating ways. Due to the untouchability stereotypes, they are even more vulnerable to abuse and exploitation. In the future decades, Dalits may become a powerful and constructive force for change in India as educational possibilities expand and expectations rise, particularly if they are able to organize themselves across linguistic and religious divides. Thank you.